The key to growth is the introduction of higher dimensions of consciousness into our awareness. Lao Tzu. Welcome to the Applied Awareness Podcast, where you join me, Adam French, on my journey of expanding my awareness of self and the world around me. Then find creative ways to apply that awareness to live a more successful and fulfilling life. In this first episode, I'll just be introducing myself and the podcast and giving a few examples of how awareness has helped me improve my life. Let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first inaugural episode of the Applied Awareness Podcast. I'm your host, Adam French. So you probably don't know a lot about me. Let me introduce myself before I get into anything else. So I was born in Rockville, Maryland, by Washington, D.C., capital of the United States of America. I was raised in Salt Lake City, beautiful nature over there. That was a great place. And now I'm going to school at Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona. Always sunny and sometimes overwhelmingly hot. I am studying innovation in society, and basically no one ever knows what that is. So I'll go ahead and explain it to you. Basically what that is figuring out how to make technology work for us, to make innovation work for humans, instead of to make humans work for and pay for the consequences of innovation. So innovating in a societally conscious, or you could say societally aware manner. That's what my major is all about. That's what I'm studying. I am a UX designer, user experience designer. I love talking to people and figuring out their problems and then designing interfaces to solve their problems. That's kind of my thing. I love it. And in hand with that, I'm an aspiring social entrepreneur. Right now, I'm working on a urban agriculture community app. I will have a name for it soon. I'll let y'all know as soon as I do. I'm also an insatiable learner, and I want to share what I learned with the world. Hence, this podcast. Anything else? Love basketball, love hip hop. If you want to know any more about me, go ahead and just click on one of the social media links in the show notes, and you can reach out to me, say what's up. I'm always down to interact with you guys. That's why I made this podcast. I want to share my story, and I want to hear your stories as well. So now that that's out of the way, what does this podcast do for you? Well, that's a great question. This podcast is about expanding your awareness of self and the world we live in, and then learning how to apply this awareness to our life to make it more fulfilling. So kind of an example from my own life, I took the Gallup Strengths Test to create more awareness about my strengths and what I'm really fueled by doing. Because I'm a young college kid. I don't really know myself that well yet. I don't know myself like that yet. So I took this test, and I found out from it, kind of confirmed what I felt, but it's also always nice to have that confirmation, that validation, kind of strengthens the awareness in your own mind. I figured out that I loved learning, I love ideating, and I love reading and having an input of information and then synthesizing that information. So based on that kind of expanded knowledge and concrete knowledge of my strengths and what I love doing, when I started this podcast, that came to the forefront of my mind, and it allowed me to kind of push through the inertia and the fear that I had initially, which everyone does when they're starting something new. They're like, what if this happens? I don't know. Like, I was like, do I have anything to share? And then at the end of the day, I was like, this plays to my strengths. I get to read about different topics. I get to ideate about topics for episodes. I get to learn more than anything, and share that with the world. And that's really the stuff that drives me. So that allowed me that awareness allowed me to take that extra leap in my own life. So that's a good example of an inner type of awareness, right? I know myself. I know what's within me, and I use that to make the right decisions in my own life. There's another kind of type of awareness that I want to cover in this podcast, and that is, I'm going to dub it outer awareness. So this is awareness of the context around us, the world around us. So my example here is, I was listening to this TED Talks. I'll link it in the show notes. I think it's called, it's TED Radio Hour, The Food We Eat. And I figured out that into 1 kilogram of industrial raised beef, so cows grown on one of those factory farms, it takes 15,400 liters of water per pound of beef. So from the farm, from the birth of the cow to your table, there is over 15,000 liters of water that go into that. And so I figured this out. I became aware of that fact, and I was like, I'm probably not going to buy beef that isn't grass-fed anymore. So usually I don't buy beef because I'm too broke to buy the organic stuff. You know how it is. But having that knowledge allowed me to kind of do my part in helping the world while I can. Because there is a lot of things like that where we make purchases, where we make decisions on recreation or activities that we do without knowing the industries or the forces or the interests or the environmental and social impacts behind it. So in this podcast, to kind of wrap it all together, I want to take these two kind of types of awareness: inner awareness, where you know yourself and what's within you, and outer awareness, where you know the world around you and the context in which you're existing, basically. And I want to build ways to apply knowledge of both of those areas. So I know more about myself. Now I'm able to make better career decisions. I'm able to make more advances in my productivity and my workflow and my daily routines. And then outer awareness, I'm able to be an informed consumer. I'm able to maybe pick a career that I know will make the most impact because I know what the biggest issues are. I'm aware of the biggest issues in the world and the hidden forces that shape our world. So it's a little bit of a combination of these two factors. And in that journey, I'm going to be interviewing a few people that I find to be inspiring. And I know you will too. I did this because of my network, not because of my own personal knowledge. So I'm going to be interviewing social entrepreneurs, educators, students, and just local rock stars in my area of Tempe, maybe some people from Salt Lake. And I'm going to have them share their wisdom and expertise and how awareness kind of helps them advance and how awareness helped them choose their career. So that's kind of the synopsis of what I'm going to be covering in this podcast. Now, let's start to cover awareness itself. What is it really? And I did a little bit of research on it, and the biggest thing that I found is it's having knowledge or discernment of something. You can sense it. You can feel it. On Psychology Today, this article kind of defines it as the state or ability to perceive, feel, or be conscious of events, objects, or sensory patterns. So that's a pretty good definition, and that kind of captures the outer awareness and inner awareness, right? So events, objects, that's kind of the outer awareness. Sensory patterns, that's the awareness of what's happening inside you. So that's what awareness is. And Headspace, just to kind of elaborate it, really cement it in your mind, how I'm going to be approaching the concept of awareness. Headspace has a really good metaphor, I guess. Metaphor, analogy, I don't know. It's been a while since fucking English class. It has a metaphor about having the lights off around your thoughts compared to having the lights on. So they compare it to a horror movie where when the lights are off around the horror movie, you're focused in on the movie. Nothing else matters. And you're scared, right? You're like, oh shit. I don't know. Like, am I in this movie right now? This is freaking me out. But then you flip the lights on and the context is around that horror movie, right? You're like, oh, this isn't so bad. Life is much bigger than this horror movie. I'm going to be okay. Like, shake it off. So think about the horror movie as your thoughts, right? Some people get lost in their thoughts. Some people call it lost in the sauce, lost in your thoughts. It's, it's the same concept. You go down this, a lot of people with anxiety and depression call it a spiral into their own head, into doubts, into fears, into different, into just the huge complexity of their thoughts. They have all these things swirling in their head and they get carried in that swirl. So they feel like they're in a spiral. But having awareness is you're flipping the lights on. So instead of being completely focused and having your thoughts happen to you, you just become aware of them. The lights flip on. You're like, wait, I am not my thoughts. I'm a much bigger entity than just my thoughts. I can look at my thoughts, and yeah, they might be unpleasant. They might be pleasant, but I can observe them, and I can remove myself from my thoughts and my emotions. And that's the important part you got to know about awareness, is being able to, especially internal awareness, right? Having your thoughts be this stream, right? And now your awareness is you looking down at your thoughts, you looking separately at your thoughts. So you're not caught up in them. You don't get lost in them. You can strategize, you can plan, you can control, you can manipulate. And that's why it's useful to be aware of things, right? Because you can mindfully control something that you are aware of. And let's apply this to emotions, kind of go a little bit back to the emotions part. This means you can discern what causes different emotions, and you can learn to avoid negative habits and embrace positive ones. Instead of being lost in your emotions and having them happen to you and having you be an actor that's blowing in the wind of your emotions, you can be the master of your emotions by becoming aware of what causes those emotions. So that is the true power of awareness for me. So along with that controlling of emotions, that's kind of the inner awareness. That's the power of inner awareness. And I'm kind of splitting these apart because I believe they're markedly different, and they both serve their own purpose. It's almost a balance. So outer awareness, the awareness of the world around you, the factors, at work that's outside of your inner state of being, that is the starting point for action in terms of helping society. Charities and nonprofits talk about raising awareness for issues, right? Why do they want to raise awareness for this issue happening in the world? Because then people would be like, oh my God, like people are being beheaded in the town square in Saudi Arabia. Like we need to do something, That's kind of the dichotomy between inner awareness, which is how can I optimize myself? How can I control my emotions? How can I be present in every moment? And outer awareness, which is how can I really gather more knowledge about the world? And how can I use this knowledge to further my own path and to help other people that may be struggling? So you can use inner awareness to empower yourself and outer awareness to find the best places to help the world and choose the right career. That wraps it up for this episode of the Applied Awareness Podcast. I hope you're leaving more aware than when the episode started. For more on the episode today, you can check out our Medium publication at medium.com/appliedawareness. To reach out to me individually, you can tweet at me on Twitter at appliedpodcast or email me at appliedawarennesspod@gmail.com. All of the previously mentioned methods of communication will be in the show notes. Next episode, y'all should be real excited for this. I'm interviewing my friend Anastasios. He's a serial entrepreneur, founder of many restaurants, and expert on using self-awareness to help propel and motivate yourself past hard times and past struggles and challenges and obstacles through to success. So that's going to be a great episode. I'll see you next time.